platforms. So first of all, let us start with Facebook. Hello, Facebook. Is there anybody viewing me on Facebook? Anybody there on Facebook? Let me just make sure the settings are all good. Settings are all good. Excellent. We are now live on Facebook. Now let me move on to YouTube. Let's see if we are all good on YouTube. There was a problem yesterday with YouTube. So if you are on YouTube and you are viewing me, please just say hello. Please just say hello. Hello? Hello? Is anybody there? Hello, Shonale? Did I say your name? Hello, Fionana. Hello, everybody on all platforms. I think we are ready to work. Hello, Leah Amy's in Belfast. And hello, Spot. Okay, excellent. I think we can begin. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Coronacast comedy show. If anybody is tuning in for the first time, this is a show where I, Deliso Chaponda, stand-up comedian, who now has no crowd because of COVID, entertains the people of the internet, whether you be watching me on YouTube or Facebook, or whether you're listening to this as a podcast. Welcome. This is a comedy show. I do jokes. Today's is going to be a mixture. In the second half of the show, I am going to do jokes from audience suggestions on Twitter, on Facebook, on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. All the course of the day, people have sent me suggestions of subjects to make funny, and I made them funny, and I will do those jokes in the second half. The first half is something I haven't done before, because I started thinking today about what happens when COVID is over, right? Because right now, it's lovely. I'm doing all of these shows. I'm making people laugh. I'm doing free shows. And it's keeping me sane. It's hopefully making some of you laugh. But after COVID's over, I'll have to go back to trying to salvage my career with the canceled tour and stuff like that. And I realized that what I want to do once it's over is I will do a post-corona tour. I'll do another tour. I'll do my third tour. I've done 2 tours. You can find those shows on this channel for free on YouTube, my YouTube channel. There's What the Africans Said, and there's Blah Blah Blacklist. These are my 2 tours. I'll be going into number 3. So I am going to try out jokes for that tour in the first half of the show. Because what you've got to understand is the jokes you suggest, often very funny things happen, sometimes not funny things happen, but it's not necessarily subjects which I could talk about for 2 hours on a tour. Do you know what I mean? Like, let's look at the suggestions today. We've got Easter eggs, right? I could hardly talk about Easter eggs for 10 minutes. And I couldn't talk about, family dinner for 5 minutes. Actually, I might be able to, but you see what I mean? Like, when it's random subjects, I can't necessarily build on them and turn it into a show. Because a show is not just a random compilation of jokes. Jokes become routine. So I examine stuff, I explore it. So in the first half, I am going to run you through the first few jokes and first few themes that I am thinking on expanding on for my tour. So you're going to be getting like my first work in progress. Every few of these, I think I'll be throwing in a work in progress where I try out jokes for my next tour. Now, I have no audience in front of me. If I had an audience in front of me, I would go by the laughter. So, especially in part 1, where I'm trying out jokes for my next tour, what I want you to do is put in LOLs if you enjoy it. Also, not only will I do the joke, I'll tell you what I'm going to expand on, what theme I want to build on. And if you're interested in that theme, say more of that, more of that, more of that. Or if you're not, just be like, well, I'm not feeling that one. Totally fine, right? After the first section, I'll talk to the people in the comments, right? I'll talk to the people in the comments. We'll have a little bit of an interval, have a little bit of chit chat. And then in the second half, I'll do jokes from audience suggestions. This week, today, the suggestions were hecklers, American truckers, Disney creating the coronavirus, nature programs, Easter eggs, memory, family dinners, vaccines tested in Africa, condoms, meth, China, and bad technology. Okay, so that's what we've got coming up on the show. I hope you enjoy it. Before I get started, let me just take one quick look at the people. Hello, Corner Plot. I am back on YouTube. Thank you for coming back, not losing faith in me. Hello, Shep Blur. Hello, Maria T. Limonki. There are a lot of people today. Hello, Charlotte. There's a lot of people. Great to have you here. Some people who saw me in Blythe. You're all very welcome. Oh, some Chichewa people. Hello, people in Malawi. People from all around the world. Ready for the Coronacast comedy show. So without further ado, let me begin with telling you a few jokes which are essentially based on what I've been working on. Now, the first one is actually something which I wrote for Brexit, right? I wrote for Brexit, but I'm not interested in the context of Brexit. I'm interested in building on it because I find it fascinating. And that is negotiation, right? Now, just to put you all on the same page, the British government and Europe have been negotiating the terms of them leaving the EU for a long time. And I started doing a joke around a month ago, so this has been done a bit, it's not been polished, but I started doing this joke about how negotiation, right, the best way to negotiate is not to ask for what you want. You ask for too much and you negotiate your way down, right? If you're gonna haggle at the market, you don't start with the price you want, right? You ask for too much, you negotiate your way down. And the best example I can think of this is that if there are any couples in my audience, think about it. If you, either partner, right? When I do it on stage, I've generally been picking a man, but it could be the woman. If one of the partners in the relationship, right, decides they want to suggest a threesome, right? You cannot just start the discussion, let's have a threesome, because that could lead to a very short discussion. It's like threesome, no, end of discussion. So what you got to do, my advice to any of you watching who's looking to try and get a threesome going is aim high. You got to walk in confident. You got to be like, hey, we need to bring in 3 women and a goat. Immediate reaction of your partner will be like, goat? What goat? What goat? You're like, the goat is not for sex. The goat is just in the background for atmosphere. So that, of course, was my starting joke, a little joke which I did as a kind of throwaway joke about Brexit. But then, actually, I've started thinking about negotiation, how governments negotiate. And this is what I plan to build on my tour. I plan to do a 10-minute section on negotiation because people think it's so easy, right? You've got people like Trump pulling out of this Iranian trade deal. You've got Britain like pulling out of all of these treaties like it's an easy thing. But it takes years and years of slowly picking away and rewriting and renegotiating to get treaties done. Countries don't want to just give you what they want. People are always like, oh, just go to Brussels, tell them what we want. It's not easy. And my proof of this, of how difficult negotiations are, is look at your iTunes, right? Look at your iTunes document, which has the rules and regulations and the agreement which you signed. It was around 4 pages, and that was just to buy music. Imagine how convoluted and complicated those kind of negotiations are. So essentially, that's sort of where I'm going. And because I had a dad who was in the UN and things like that, I'm going to sort of do a whole section about negotiation and how countries get along. I mean, right now, like, you know, countries are having to get along who never thought they would have to. So that, if you find that interesting, put it in the comments, okay? I'll come to it before the second section. Then the second one I'm thinking of talking about is, this is a story which I told the beginning of in my radio show, Citizen of Nowhere. And I found it was just touching on something interesting, so I may expand on it. So this is the joke. Tell me what you think and tell me if you're interested in the direction I'm going. So I am thinking of doing a joke. This is totally true. I went to a fascinating school in Swaziland, right? In Swaziland, in southern Africa. And I went to the school called Waterford Kamhlaba. It was a school which had, because it had good education, it had lots of children of ambassadors, children of ministers, you know. And one of the children who was at our school was Nelson Mandela's grandson, right? It was amazing. He was a total dick. He was a total dick. He was a bully. He used to kick the hell out of us. He was such a bully. And it's weird when you are being bullied by the grandson of somebody who you idolize. So he's beating you and you're like, could you introduce me to, you know, he was such an inspiration, and he was like, you know, his name was Mandla, and he'd be hitting me and I'd be going, Mandla, and he'd be going, awetu. So that was a silly joke I did, but actually, you know, I wanted to expand it because I think Yes, he was a kid. He was a dumb kid, but of course, he was privileged. Of course, he was a dick because he was untouchable, right? He was untouchable. I was going to a protest school set up to fight apartheid. There is absolutely no way they are going to expel the grandson of Nelson Mandela. And they're definitely not going to give him detention. Could you imagine 27 days detention to the grandson of Nelson Mandela? I don't think they'll live it down, right? And the thing I want to expand on is different kinds of privilege, right? Because people talk about, wealth and privilege and, white privilege and all the different kinds of privilege. But it's interesting if you think about how different people have different kinds of privilege just based on who they are, their status in society. So I might talk about that. If you think that's something which would be interesting for me to explore on, put it in the comments. Okay, let's move on. The third one, which is something which I am building into my next tour possibility. Again, I don't know, because I'm starting writing it now, and I will probably tour October, assuming COVID is over, right? There are going to be a lot of iterations and changes. Okay, next thing I'm actually thinking about is money and sexism. Now, I don't know if this is funny, but I was seeing someone for a while who, for happenstance, happened to lose her job. Right, she happened to lose her job, and I was a supportive boyfriend, and I was just, we got along great, and I was like, look, okay, while you're struggling, while you're trying to find a job, I will cover your rent, right? I will send you some money so you can buy food, right? Just supporting her, because she was my girlfriend, right? Now this was a long distance relationship. Anyway, I'm giving you too many details, right? No. Either way, the joke, what I wanted to write the joke about was this: is that I noticed that at first, for the first few months, it was totally fine, right? But the longer you support someone financially, the more you start becoming a dick. And I didn't know. I always thought I wasn't a dick. I'm not a dick. I'm a very nice person. But when you start supporting someone financially, and you're like, there's a point where you start thinking of them as your employee or something. You're like, oh, I guess the rent's due. And it's really weird. And there's a level where I did not know I had these sexist tendencies in me, right? I know I'm sexist. All humans have a bit of prejudice in them. But what I mean is I did not know I had the kind of dickish behavior in me. When we'd have a fight, I'd be like, well, I wouldn't say it, but in my head, I'd be thinking, well, I'm paying your rent, so what's your problem? And I didn't know I had it in me. And so I want to explore that kind of thing, that economics creates some horrible things in us. And, it might start on sexism, it might talk about other kinds of prejudice, which it's not really about thinking you're superior, but it's about people resenting economically being beholden to someone and having that responsibility. Anyway, if you find it interesting, let me know. I know that current version was just me whining, not yet funny, but it's something which I think I could mine and make a joke out of, right? And then another thing I have from a different relationship is I remember being in a relationship where somebody had cheated on me and done other horrible things. It's not worth going into, but I decided that I would forgive them because, one, I understood why it had happened. There'd been a few extenuating circumstances, so I understood why it happened. I agreed to forgive them, but the bit I didn't realize is forgiving them was easy, right? That was the easy part. Forgiveness is not the hard part. Is they now wanted me to never mention it in arguments. It's so hard in a fight, right, where you've done something to piss them off, not to bring up, well, what about me forgiving you for cheating on you, and you are cheating on me, and you're angry at me because I, forgot your birthday? I think I've got a free pass. It's so hard not to bring it up, right? That's the first thing. You've got to agree to forgive them, but also to forget it ever happened. And then the other thing is you have to defend the secret. That's the other part I did not know I was signing up for, because by forgiving them, they also want to keep their behavior a secret from all of their friends who would judge them, from your friends, from your family. And so they keep lying about what happened in that time. And you have to, I didn't know I was joining some kind of secret society aimed at defending your infidelity. I didn't know that I would have to be planting red herrings and false tales to mislead the world at large so that no one ever knows what you did. I think forgiveness is the easy part. It's the other stuff. So that's a thing I'm going to elaborate on. And I might look into other sins which you forgive, and then it's got unrelated things which you have to do. Okay, so if you find that interesting, put that in the comments and I will elaborate on it, chip away at it. I know it's not yet a joke. I'm just saying these are the themes and the stories which I will be building into a show. And then the last one is a joke which it's so funny because I wrote it for my current show and it didn't, for Blah Blah Blacklist, it didn't have a place in it, right? I've tried it in so many times. I know the joke, but anyway, this is the joke, right? Is a lot of people talk about racism, and I'll tell you this, most of the UK where I live isn't that racist, but the one place which is really racist, most racist place in the UK, sex shops. Yeah, sex shops are racist. You didn't even know. You probably didn't know. All of you people watching, you did not know that sex shops are racist. I'm going to open your minds. Next time you look into a sex shop, you're going to know, right? In fact, even if you just go to Pornhub, go to any porn site, you will see exactly what I mean, right? Because this is what I noticed when I went into a British sex shop. Out in the open, they've got regular porn. Then at the back, in a little room, they've got the twisted stuff. People pissing on each other, weird stuff. Now, what offended me, what bothered me is interracial is in the twisted section. They're saying for a white woman sleeping with me is the same as being shat on. That's offensive. And anyway, it's a silly joke, but I'm actually gonna want to do a section about how, of course, we a lot of people have started to think that racism is just, you know, someone spitting on you or someone calling you the N-word, but really there's subtle stuff baked into society which has prejudices in it. And I was thinking of doing a section of that. If you found that interesting or you think I should expand on that, put it in the comments. I mean, I might do it anyway, but it still helps when I have no audience to see what people are interested in. Okay, we're going to now have a little interval. I will have a chat with people in the chat room, and then we will get to the second section, which is me talking about jokes from your suggestions. Okay, let's get started. Okay, we're going to start with, okay, let's see. If you have a question, put question marks around it so that I can see it amongst the many comments. Okay. Baz Gorgeous says, great to catch me live. My brother used to be your doctor when you were younger. Well, good to hear, Baz. My brother is actually an infectious diseases specialist. So he's in the front line of this COVID fight. Hope he's doing well. Actually, I know he's doing well because I just spoke to him, but like, you know, I hope he continues to do well. And if any of you are religious, got a connection, throw in a prayer for all of the doctors who are working. And if you're not religious, throw a prayer to nobody. Just be like, you know, nothing, the expanse, science, please help. Okay, let's keep going. Fire, thank you for the fire, Evans, okay. Cow Balde said, the bribe that's Dawn shall steal. Oh, okay, so Cow Balde wants me to do my joke. I did a joke years ago, 2017 on Britain's Got Talent, about how the Bible said thou shalt not steal, but nowhere does it say thou shalt not swap. Ha! One of my favorite jokes which I ever wrote because it's just a play on words. Glad you enjoyed that joke, okay? Glad you liked the negotiation. Corner plot, I didn't know I was a dick. I'll tell you the truth is, I think a lot of people don't realize they've got, no one thinks they're the villain. That's the actual thing, is even if you talk to somebody who's horrible, they think they're the hero of the story. So you don't realize you're being a dick when you're being a dick. And I want to expand on that because I think a lot of people might have that realization if they looked closer at their life. Azad Tube says, I do not know how to write your country name in English. So my country name, Azad, is Malawi. That's Malawi, Malawi. But I'm currently broadcasting from the UK where I live. Okay, let us move on. Mandela Grandson and the sexism and forgiveness is funny. Glad you enjoyed it. Excellent. Oh, Steph Toon, I did the negotiation joke on yourself and your partner. You loved it. Thank you so much. I will expand on that. I think there's a lot more which I can do on that, which is negotiations in relationships. Because it's even things like, for example, if a guy who's been married for a while, right, wants to have sex, right? I've noticed from a friend of mine, they've got to negotiate it into happening. They've got to work on it all day. They've got to start the day and wash the dishes and, take the kids out. Say, oh, you lion, I'm going to take the kids out. And they got to do so many things because they're trying to open the negotiations on, I've been lovely all day. How about at the end of the day, you wear this lingerie and we have some fun? You know what I mean? So I think there's more which I can build on. So I'm glad you enjoyed that. Good bit on Mandla Lefika. Did you know Mandla? I think you did. Excellent. Dexter Parker says, any tips on becoming a comedian? Yes, every few days I give a different, suggestion on tip on being a comedian. Dexter Parker, one of the ones I would suggest is total brutal honesty about stuff which makes you uncomfortable, right? Don't worry how you seem, right? Because I think the thing is, a lot of people want people to like them, so they won't necessarily do a joke where they seem like a dick, or they won't do a joke which makes them seem grumpy. I think people admire the honesty even if you are being a dick in that moment, because they can see the humanity in it and they will laugh. So what I'll say is, just be really honest. Whatever jokes you write, don't hide anything. Put it all out there. Okay, excellent. Excellent. So thank you so much for all of the common things. Someone made a suggestion for jokes. I don't make the jokes up on the spot. I write for around 4 hours. So suggestions, I take them in the mornings on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook. And now we're going to go to jokes by suggestion. Before I do them, you'll see up at the top, there are some links if any of you want to support this show. But you can also support the show just by sharing the show, telling friends. And also, when eventually I do this tour, right? When I do this tour, come October, come January, and I'm near your city, come see me live. It'll be funnier. Okay, so now let us get to the jokes from audience suggestions. Before that, let me just take a drink. Hope you're all doing well. And I hope you're all dealing with your respective lockdowns and keeping sane. It's tough some days, isn't it? But today for me was a good day. Yesterday was a bad day. We go up, we go down. Okay, here we go. So jokes from suggestions. The first suggestion was about hecklers. I'm not sure who suggested it. I think I saw two people who suggested they wanted me to talk about heckling. People often want comedians to talk about heckling. It's not a big deal when it happens, right? The only thing I don't understand about hecklers is they are so upset. They feel they need to jump up and object. And I'm someone who, sometimes I don't like art. Sometimes I don't like a play. Sometimes I don't like a movie. I've never been drawn to, in the middle, get up and say, it's terrible. Right? I'll just leave the movie. I've never been like, yeah, it's so... And that's the thing. They're so angry, they must jump in and tell you, right? Now, in art, I don't understand it. I don't understand it in a movie. I don't understand it in a play. I kind of understand it with politics, right? If somebody is saying something so horrible that it really gets to you, I kind of understand saying, this guy's talking nonsense, man. But at the same time, I don't think anyone heckled Hitler. Well, maybe they did. He just yelled over them because he was such a loudmouth. But another thing is, like, I'm trying to think of times in my life when I've heckled. I've never heckled for politics. The only time I would say I've heckled is I heckled a teacher. I think I heckled a history teacher at school, but I didn't heckle them with words. I heckled them with I'm sure other kids did this thing. It was ridiculous. Whenever the teacher was irritating us, I would go and then other kids would go and the thing about is nobody can detect where the is sourced from, right? So this little kid was, stop doing that. This teacher was like, stop doing that. Who's doing that? Who's making that sound? We made them break down. Well, kids are ruthless. But the actual thing, the most crazy thing which happened to me with regards to hecklers is years ago, I went on tour supporting a friend of mine, a very funny comedian called Sugar Sammy. Check him out after me if you want a good laugh, right? So I was an opening act for Sugar Sammy's tour. And I remember in one of the cities, I invited a friend. I invited a lady friend to come to the show, to watch the show, a very lovely, good friend of mine. And she came to the show. I I was the opener. I wasn't the star. So she watched me. She laughed. Great. And then she watched Sugar Sammy, who had hired me, and she heckled him. Oh my God, could you believe it? Like, the person I invited was the person who interrupted the person who'd hired me and started heckling. I remember I just wanted to hide in the corner, and I didn't know what to do. I was like, what can I do? What can I do? Because if he knew that the heckler was the person who I invited, he might be upset at me and not use me for the rest of the tour. I didn't know what to do. And so I was like, okay, what can I do? Maybe I need to pretend I don't know her. But after the show, she's coming over. And I realized I have to just appeal to the sort of brotherhood of men. Is I was like, look, she heckled you, but I'm trying to sleep with her. So you understand, right? You understand. Now, I wasn't trying to sleep with her, but men can always understand. It's like, okay, no problem. I won't be angry because I don't want to ruin your chances. Men have a very weird brotherhood. That's all I'm saying. If you want to get out of trouble, men, just appeal to your male friends' desire to help you get laid. It's amazing the stuff which they'll tolerate. I know men who have wanted to go home and have stayed out an extra 2 hours to wingman and try to help their friend try to get laid. I don't know why, but we are all united in the search. I just looked at my empty bed right now and I was like, well, it's not helping right now because COVID is the ultimate cock blocker. Next, we've got American truckers. So this was a suggestion from @the only rider in town. And he or she wanted a joke about American truckers. Now, there is something which is an absolutely fascinating thing with American trucks, which happens in Texas. And there's actually a documentary about it called, I'm not even sure what it's called, Hands on Something. If you just put in trucks, hands-on documentary, you'll find it, because this is absolutely fascinating. In Texas, there's this contest which they do. They used to do this every year, right? And what they used to do is they would have a new truck, I think it was a Nissan, I may be wrong, but the new truck would be parked in the center of town. And everybody in the contest, usually 24 people, would put one hand on the truck, right? And you have to just stand there for hours in the heat of the sun. You have a short 5-minute break every hour so that no one shits themselves, right? So you can just go urinate or whatever, right? They don't want it to be that much of a test. But still, it's an endurance test, because you stay there with your hand on the truck, and whoever is the last one to give up and let go, or to lean on the truck, whoever's the last one to stay standing gets to keep the truck, right? Isn't that insane, right? There's a level where I think it's better than a lottery, because a lottery is just dumb luck. This is a test of endurance. And in fact, for my next tour, yeah, I think instead of doing a lottery, because I always do, I'll do a few posts on Facebook. Hey, first person to say what country I'm from, I will give you a ticket. Or everybody retweet this. We'll do a lottery and 2 people will get a free ticket. I don't know. No, I think we need to do an endurance test. So the next tour, I'm going to have a bunch of tickets. And I'm going to put them in the center of town. And people will have to put one finger on it. And whoever lasts the longest will get to keep them. All right, now I'll tell you one thing, though. It doesn't happen anymore, because tragically, one year, some guy couldn't deal with the pressure. Maybe he really wanted the truck, and he went and he killed himself. So I'm not going to make a joke, but this is why they stopped doing them, because it is messing with people's psychology to be in such endurance tests. You know what I mean? Like, if you're someone with problems and you're doing this, standing there for 20 hours, sometimes it goes for, the last one went for 77 hours. Can you imagine that? 77 hours. You've been standing there for days holding this truck. Someone's going to snap. And so they stopped doing it. But anyway, that's American truckers. Next up, we've got at MRPBR Comedy. At Mr. BR Comedy wanted a joke about Disney creating Corona. Now, I've got to tell you, I've heard a lot of conspiracy theories, right? I've heard about 5G making the coronavirus. I've heard it being made in American labs, it being made in Chinese labs. Every country except Malawi. I don't know why people aren't theorizing that Malawi could have made it. Hey, man, I know we don't necessarily have the science of you guys, but we could have done it. You gotta have faith. We're small, but we're resilient. But I've heard loads of conspiracy theories. I've heard absurd conspiracy theories that the Illuminati made it, right? But I have never, until Mr. BR Comedy Pit, Disney created Corona. Disney. Like, we know Disney are running the world. They own Marvel now. They own DC. They own everything, right? Yes. So they are like an ultimate corporate thing. But why would they have created Corona, right? And I started thinking about this. 5G maybe, but Mickey Mouse, right? I created the coronavirus. I can't see it, right? I can't see it. But if Disney was involved, it would probably be a Disney villain. Yeah. I couldn't see Mickey Mouse doing it, but maybe Scar could have done it, right? Or maybe Cruella de Vil could have created the coronavirus. I could see that, right? But the worst thing about it, though, is if a Disney villain did it, they would sing about it. That's how cocky they are. They would jump up and down. It's like, my disease is killing people. They would sing about it. They sing and dance while torturing you. But speaking of Walt Disney, do you know that right now Disney, of course, Disney World is closed. But what they're doing to fill the gap, right? What they're doing to fill the gap is you can log on online and you can do a virtual ride. So you put on virtual 3D glasses and you could do a virtual ride through Disney's rides. The only thing is I don't think this is enough. Because as everybody knows, a roller coaster, the fun of the roller coaster isn't seeing it. The fun of the roller coaster is the fear. So kids, I've got a few ways you can make being on a virtual roller coaster as exciting. Okay, so while you're on the virtual roller coaster, start juggling knives, okay? Right? That's the danger you need, kids. Or even better, what you need to do a danger wank. If you don't know what a danger wank is, right? What you do is you start wanking. So you're watching the Disney villain. You're watching the Disney roller coaster ride, right? You start wanking and then you call your mom. Hey, mom. And then you have to finish by the time she comes to the door, right? That little bit of extra stress is going to give you the thrill you need on the roller coaster. I should never have said that. Don't actually listen to my advice. There was some kid who messaged me that your pickup lines didn't work. I'm a comedian. Those were not meant to be real pickup lines. Okay. Next up, at Nature. No, what's next? Nature Program. So at Ryan Chatfield wanted a joke about nature programs. I'll tell you the thing about nature programs. The thing I always admire is how much patience nature photographers and people filming nature have, right? Because if you actually think about it, they've got to sit there for hours looking for a great shot, right? And they watch the animals for days sometimes, right? They stalk them, they follow them for 3 or 4 days. And I actually wonder, imagine the animals know, right? You know, there's a bunch of wildebeest just chilling out at the lake and they're like, oh, you see up there? Up there? Your stalker's back again. Oh no, the humans, yeah, they're back. They're back, peering at you through binoculars, right? And it's like, oh my God. I put a restraining order on that Attenborough and he's still at it. Okay, that wasn't the best of jokes, but I tried. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Easter eggs. This was a suggestion from at GG Babby Jones. Wanted a joke about Easter eggs, right? And I think this is the thing about Easter eggs. When I was a kid, I used to get irritated because I was like, just give me the chocolate. Give me the chocolate egg. Just give it to me, right? Just give me the chocolate egg. But no! They used to make little games out of it. They used to take the chocolates and they used to hide them all over the place, hide them under the things in the garden, and then give you a bunch of clues to discover. That's what an Easter egg hunt is. If any of you don't know, Easter egg hunts is the chocolate eggs are hidden and kids are given little like clues like under the red but below the green. And that means like underneath the rose but below the hedge or something like that. All kinds of cryptic clues, and then you have to go and you have to be like Mr. Riddle Master to find the bloody chocolate. I'm like, just give me the chocolate. It's so unacceptable. Could you accept that in any other place in your life? Imagine your boss at the end of the month was like, I've got my salary. I've got your salary, right? I've got your salary. I've got it. I took it out of the bank. But I'm not just going to give it to you, right? I've hidden it. I've hidden it in 3 amounts. So I've hidden I split it into 3, and I've put your salary in 3 places in town. And here is a list of riddles. And if you solve the riddles, you will get your salary. Just give me the chocolate. Next, memory. This was a suggestion from, who was it? At Isabel Tomset wanted a joke about memory. Now, this is something which I thought about because I have an ex who I spoke to, right? Every now and then you call your exes. We haven't been together for over 10 years, right? Years ago, we used to be together. And it was funny because we're having a conversation. And we were talking about something that happened. And it was amazing when I realized that her recollection of it and my recollection of it were totally different. Not even on the same page, right? She remembered one thing. I remembered another thing. We both went through the same experience, right? And I was just like, she's got a terrible memory. How could? And then I actually started to wonder, maybe she hasn't got a terrible memory. Maybe I've got a terrible memory. And it's very scary when you start thinking about that, because you're like, did anything that I believe happened? Because I literally mean, like, we both went to the same show, talked about it later, and drove home. And all 3 parts of that, we remembered a vastly different thing. So I was like, either she has no memory, or I have no memory, or both of us were dating clones of each other, right? They were aliens who'd replaced, and the one alien went with one of us to one, and but it makes you worry, right? Because if your memories are warped, nothing's safe. Because also, I noticed that her insecurities had warped the memory, right? In that she remembered somebody saying something meaner than I remembered them saying, because that's how she looks at us. But then I was like, but then what psychological things of mine are warping it? Like, am I as funny as I think I am? When I remember all those gigs where I did so well and people are laughing, maybe they weren't laughing. Maybe my ego has warped my memory. Once you start going down this, it makes you doubt everything. It also makes you wonder about trials. You know, trials which happen 10 years after. Like, is anybody really remembering what happened? Oh. Like, I remember nonsense. That's the other thing, is you remember the wrong stuff. Like, I remember the name of Henry VIII's 6 wives. Why do I remember that? Why is that stupid childhood fact lodged in my head when I can't remember my grandmother who's passed away's lovely recipe for chocolate cake? Why did my brain say Henry VIII? Yes. Chocolate cake, which could be delighting me, gone. Memory's weird. Next, we go to at Raktogdjurjevic. I don't know if I said your name right. Please tell me in the comments where you're from, if you're here or if you catch up on this on YouTube, because I'm very interested where the name Jurcevic comes from. Jurcevic. Anyway, you wanted a joke about family dinner, right? Now, I remember when I was a kid, we used to pray. Like, we used to pray at dinner. Before every dinner, we used to pray, thank Lord, for health and strength and daily bread. Lord, we give you thanks, so on and so forth. We used to pray. It was just part of the ritual. It's part of what we did. We prayed. Now, I don't know if this is a joke, more as a suggestion. If you are a house guest at a religious home and you are an atheist, just play along. Right? I remember we invited someone for dinner. We'd cooked wonderful meal for this person. They were not paying anything. They were a guest having a bountiful meal. And I still remember to this day, this brat. We all pray, right? What? It took 30 seconds out of his day? 30-second prayer. I'd understand complaining if you go for a dinner and like some Pentecostal preacher just launches into like a 30-minute sermon before you get to eat, but it was a 30-second thing. This kid just started going on about, there's no God, you just wasted your time praying. You just wasted your time praying. Oh, what's this? Religion has been created by it's the opiate of the masses, and just started saying all of this stuff, and we're just like, we're feeding you, and you're bringing all of this, right? And he was like, oh, there is no God, and I was like, maybe there is no God, but there's no way you're ever going to be invited to dinner again. That is certain. I mean, maybe there's a God, maybe there's not a God, but I know with absolute certainty you are never stepping into this house again. You're never eating our food again. So just save a moment. Same thing if you are religious, right? If you are visiting a house which is not religious, right? And they are cooking for you and they don't pray, that's not the place to take. You need to give thanks. They're giving you food. Save it for later. Their house, their rules. Okay. Next, we go to at Christina Makuganja wanted me to talk about vaccine being possibly tested in Africa. Now, this is something which created a bit of controversy in the last few days. If you're not aware of this, some French scientists were talking about the efforts to create a vaccine, right? And one of them said, right, that, look, what's the point in trying to test our vaccine here in France or in developed countries where a lot of people have, they've got protective gear, they've got masks and so on. Wouldn't it be better to go test it in like an African country where they don't have as much protective gear, so it's probably more rampant and people probably have higher doses of it? Let's test it there. Now, it's entirely possible this person was and it's a scientist. It was like a cold statistical analysis, and this was what they wanted. But a lot of people started getting angry, saying this person's racist, wanting to use Africans as guinea pigs, and so on and so forth. And look, I have sympathy for the scientists. Maybe they were just being scientific, and they were just saying, in terms of actual science, in terms of actual practicality, we should test in Africa where it's more prevalent. In terms of like the numbers, there's less defense against it. Maybe they were just being scientific, but what you gotta understand, my friend scientists, is we don't trust you motherfuckers, right? We don't. You have screwed over Africa too many times, man. Dude, just look back. Look at apartheid. Look at slavery. Look at colonialism. Look at more recent stuff. Look at what Nestle did with the water, right? Just a history of so many horrible injustices. We don't trust you motherfuckers. We don't. And you know what? It's kind of sad because maybe you're right. Maybe you're right that it would be the best thing you do. But you know what happened? The only way I can make you understand is it's sort of like, I'm a comedian, right? There was a comedy club which used to give free drinks to the comedians. Don't worry. This is relevant. Just see where the story goes, okay? There was a comedy club. Comedians would come in. We could get free drinks from the bar. And then 2 fat bastard comedians went to the comedy club, like drank bottles of whiskey, champagne, went crazy, wiped. The comedy club looked at the bill, and from then on, never again. They were like, never again are we going to give any boost to these bastard comedians. And then all the rest of us comedians from then on had to pay for it, right? So it had been ruined, right? Some idiots ruined it for all of us, right? So my scientists, maybe you are right. Maybe testing it in Africa would be the same thing, and people are wrong to call you racist. Of course you're not racist, but you got to understand, it's all been ruined by the idiotic racists who went before you, right? You might not have meant racist, but other scientists have tested on Africans because they thought they were subhuman. I'm sorry, man. We don't trust you motherfuckers. Next. Let's go to at boys under JHB wanted a joke about condoms, right? Now the world is running out of condoms. Condom factory workers. I had a joke about this. Oh, it was a very stupid joke. I think the reason I forgot is because it's so bad, right? So essentially, the world is running out of condoms because factories of condoms were not on the list of essential services, so they stopped working, right? But now they have said that because the world is having a shortage of condoms, they're actually upgrading the condom factories to essential services, so condom workers are going to go back to work and make more condoms so that people can keep having sex in isolation, right? So condom workers are going back to work. And what I really want to know is, what are they wearing for protection? I know. Even though I can't hear you, I could feel the groans. Next, okay, we've got a joke for at Nathan Lowe wanted a joke about meth. Now, meth is a drug. I don't know why today's episode is more dirty than other days. It's just the mood I've been in when I was writing today. But look, guys, meth, right? In terms of drugs, there are loads of drugs, marijuana, there are all sorts of addictive drugs, class A drugs, all sorts of drugs, cocaine, etc. But meth is one of the drugs I was reading about. But this is one of the drugs which withdrawal symptoms are so extreme that it's one of the drugs which is most likely that people will offer to suck a dick to get meth, right? There are 3 drugs. So meth, cocaine, and barbiturates are drugs which people get so desperate for another hit when they're addicted that they will offer sexual services. They will offer to suck a dick. And I don't mean like people who are not into sucking dicks, right? I'm not even sure anyone is, really. It's something you do because it gets you, jewelry and gets you, a comedy show. Don't tell anyone. But my point is, meth, sometimes people will suck a dick for meth. And I'm like, why do they waste all their time telling you don't do drugs when you're a kid? Don't do drugs. It's not as cool as you think. That's not a way to persuade kids. If you really want to persuade the kids, tell them, you see these substances? Sometimes they'll make you want to suck a dick. I'm telling you, right? Nobody, even people who are into the dick sucking, no one's going to take the drugs because they would rather do it willingly, not out of desperation. I don't know if that was a joke necessarily, but it was fun to do. Next, we have got the penultimate joke, which is about China. At Marek Gorzidinsky wanted a joke about China, right? Now, this is a very interesting thing. So the last few days, they reopened the Great Wall of China for tourists, right? Because they've had a plateau and they've had no new deaths and the numbers have seemed to have stabilized. They've reopened a bunch of tourist attractions, including the Great Wall of China. And some idiot vandalized the Great Wall of China, right? Who goes to the Great Wall of China and draws a penis or something like that? I don't understand it, right? So now they said they're going to introduce a blacklist system where people can be banned from tourist attractions. Sort of like, you're barred from a pub. You are barred from the Great Wall of China. And I started looking into the history of this, and it's crazy. There are loads of pieces of the Great Wall of China scattered all around the world, right? Because years ago, the big thing was people used to go visit it, and they used to steal a piece, right? The British Museum, World Museum, has a piece of the World Museum, of the Great Wall of China, right? Loads of people have been stealing the Great Wall of China for years. And I was like, what would happen if someone gathered all the pieces, right? Huh? Imagine you went to the British Museum, you were like, we'll have that back. You went to that private collector who's got a piece, you'll have that back. We got all the different pieces of the Great Wall of China and put them back together. Click, 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 click. It might be dangerous because maybe when you put in the last piece of the Great Wall of China, the whole thing would disappear and you'd get 2,000 points. If I did that joke on television, a Tetris theme tune would play, but you have to just imagine it. Next, and finally, somebody asked me, at Philip Earlham wanted me to do a joke about bad technology. Now, what's interesting is, maybe I spun it, but I'm not necessarily talking about bad technology, but I'm talking about good technology and the bad effects it has, right? For example, computers. Using too many computers is causing people to slouch more, right? Slouch more. And if you look at those pictures of the growth, the evolution of man, and there's man on all fours, and there's man upright, then there's man standing, right? Maybe the next one will be, the next generation will be, people will start getting born hunched over, like Homo laptopitus or something like that will be the next form of evolution, right? There's so many ways that it messes with our minds, right? Technology is very, very addictive, extremely addictive. People are addicted to Twitter. There are people who look at their Twitter every 10 minutes. These people need a support group. I'd love that support group, Twitter Anonymous. People stand up and says, hello, my name's Brian. I'm addicted to Twitter. It's been 10 days since my last retweet. Hi, Brian. Hi. It wasn't very funny, but let's keep going. There are other problems, man. The other problem I find, and I think this is one of us, which all of us find, is I hate the fact that the internet now exists in people's pockets for them to seem like they know things. Because, look, I've got degrees. I've studied stuff. Sometimes I've got some facts. And it used to be that if you bring up a fact, you're like, oh, you're the interesting person. Now, every fool pulls out Wikipedia and says, oh, you said that, but this person said this. You know that scene in Good Will Hunting, right? I don't know if you know the scene where there's some idiot who's talking at a bar. He's talking at a bar, saying some stuff, and then Good Will Hunting, out of his brain, starts quoting passages from a novel, passages from the book, better than him. Very impressive scene. But nowadays, everybody would just whip out their Wikipedia, whip out their phone, find the passage. Look, I've messed up the last joke. I don't know what it was, but the idea was sound in my head. I hope you've enjoyed yourselves. Let me take one last look at the comments before we go. I hope you've been enjoying it. Okay, here we go. Hello, Aiden Rudy. Hello, Amber Alfonso. Hello, everybody. This has been a lovely episode, actually. Yes, thank you for all the people for enjoying it. This show broadcasts every day, 9 p.m. GMT. It's the Coronacast comedy show. Keep tuning in. Stay safe. And we'll get through this together. Have a good night.